Well, my Screencastify broke, and I'm super sad-faced about it, but we will soldier on. So your first option for a unit is called the Survivor Brain. Okay? And this is actually, if you are getting an at-home packet delivered, then this is the one that you have to go with, because this is what we have hard copies of, as far as like books and things go. So if you are in that boat, then this is the only video you should watch. So unit number 1, the Survivor Brain. The big questions are: what is grit? Is mankind part of nature or in contest with it? And why do we find stories of survival so interesting? And does man crave freedom or safety? So big questions are what we'll look at over the course of the rest of the quarter, right, as we're going through. There'll be different assignments that all will gear towards one of these things or the other. Oh man, this video is a disaster already. The main text for this one will be To Build a Fire, which is a short story. The SAS Survival Guide by John Lofty Wiseman. But the good part of that is I can show you this. Boom, Survival Handbook. And the third thing we'll look at is Into the Wild. There will be other things that pop up throughout this unit. Like, I reserve the right to throw other shorter things at you, but these will be the main things that we will take a look at. Every unit will have a final paper. So the final paper for this one would be an option essay on big question 4. Does man, being mankind, want freedom? Does man want to be free? Or does man want to be safe? Okay, that's an interesting kind of question. So that will be the first one that you can choose from. And I'm actually pretty excited about it because I love Jack London, love Into the Wild, all great things. Okay. If you have Netflix, I'm going to let you watch River Monsters. It's going to be a good one. I'm just going to go ahead and go to the next thing. Put it in 2. Your second option is speculative fiction and why it matters. Its big questions are: what is creativity and where does it come from? Why is it important to have creative thinkers in society? How are dystopian and utopian works intended to mirror society? And is speculative fiction meant to be a mirror or a warning? At this point, you might be wondering what speculative fiction means. That means like sci-fi fantasy. Okay, it means that they've taken the world and invented things that don't exist, or they've invented their own worlds, in the case of like high fantasy. I love sci-fi and fantasy, so I'm super excited about this one. The main text will be Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, whom I love, which you might can tell because the next one is excerpt from the Martian Chronicles, also by Ray Bradbury. If you have ever read There Will Come Soft Rains, same guy. The third piece is a short story that I'm kind of obsessed with ever since I read it like a year ago. It's so good I can't stop thinking about it. It's called Those Who Stay and Fight by N.K. Jemisin. The culminating paper for this unit will be to compare and contrast compare and contrast a dystopian work and a utopian work. And just for, layman's terms, dystopia means a world where everything has gone wrong, and a utopian world is a world where everything's gone right. Okay, so we'll look at, aliens and firemen whose job it is to burn things instead of put out fire, and the Day of Good Birds in this one. I'm super excited. If you have an imagination at all, this one could be the one for you. Some of you guys are really like super creative, and Ray Bradbury is also super creative, so I think that could be really really enjoyable. Unit number 3, the option is Ethics in Science and Medicine. If you do not like science, this is not the one for you. This is the one I could see getting like sticky for some people. If you want to spend the next 7 weeks arguing about like the theory of evolution with me, don't choose this one. Go somewhere else. Okay. But if you are like pre-med, or you like nonfiction, or you want kind of a preview of like AP Lang, some of the stuff that we look at in there, this could be pretty cool. I'm really intrigued by this concept, right? We talk about ethics, we're talking about like morals and what's right and wrong. So the big questions here is, where is the line drawn between nature and progress? Should there be limits on what scientists can and can't do? And then what is the relationship between ethics and medicine specifically? I also think, given the fact that we're out for a pandemic, this could be interesting reading as well. because we're going to look at a couple of different concepts. You notice it doesn't say major texts, because we're going to be looking at kind of major issues. Most of the texts will be a little bit shorter, but there will be probably more of them. We'll look at genetic engineering and designer genes. The idea that if you could pick your kid's eye color, should you be able to? Hitler was into that. Ethical dilemmas in medicine as well. We'll look at the HeLa cells and their impact on medicine. We're going to look at some excerpts from a book called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, which goes through this kind of quandary. And then I also have a friend who is a doctor who I am going to browbeat into doing a video conference. So I think that could be cool. Final argument, or final paper is going to be an argumentative essay on should vaccines be mandatory? Would it be ethical to force people to get vaccines for the good of the majority? And I think that's an interesting question in and of itself. So if you feel strongly about vaccines, this might also be the one for you. Next one is option number 4, and that is a survey of humanities. This is going to be your really history-driven, right? So if you're like a history buff, this might be for you. We're going to look primarily at the ancient world. So my big questions are what makes a society and what parts of our society are remnants of ones that came before us. What did different societies value? That's a very fact-based question, but there's so many facts that are going to come at you that I felt it was warranted. What makes one cultured, right? Why do we consider some people to be well-educated if they know Shakespeare or, history? And then why do we make art, literature, music, and all of that? This is going to deal very heavily, I'm going to zoom in here, this is important, with history, art, philosophy, religion, music, and literature, what we call the humanities. Okay. Main things we'll look at, we're going to start in Mesopotamia, and we're going to go as far forward in history as we can make it in 7 weeks. I don't have a good idea of how far that will be, but that's kind of what we're going to do. There'll be a lot of fact recall, like if you don't have a great memory, maybe not for you. If you're not interested in history, definitely not for you. It will be run a lot like a history class. Be a lot of crash course videos, that kind of thing. There'll be a lot of art, be a lot of literature, and your final paper will be to contrast the values of 2 ancient cultures with our own culture. So we're going to be looking in the mirror, almost, is kind of what that's going to be about. So there's pretty well an equal amount of reading in all 4 of the units. There's not an advantage to picking one or the other. All 4 have a paper. All 4 have reading. All 4 are going to have some kind of interesting little assignments as well. We're going to work with some memes, because I love a meme. We're going to watch some videos. I've got a couple of things that I want to look at. If you have Netflix, I'm going to give you an option to watch something on Netflix or something on YouTube. Not just anything, but a specific thing. And then I'm going to figure out on my survey that I give you when I ask you what you want to study. I'm also going to ask if you have access to Hulu or Amazon Prime or Netflix or just YouTube, so that I can kind of make some decisions there as well. So when you're doing your survey, that's important information for me to have. And yeah, so I'll be sending that survey and pick something you're interested in.